Hey guys, welcome to the KJ Methods YouTube channel. All right, so how do we calculate principal and interest, right? How do we calculate that payment every month of principal and interest? Well, we use a chart just like this that you see in front of you. So let's say Jane is purchasing a home and her loan amount is $274 for 15 years at 4.375 interest. What is her payment factor? Now, payment factor is the number that we use to help us figure out what Jane's monthly principal and interest payment is going to be. So let's take a look. You'll get a chart like this typically on the real estate exam. On these problems, we have to figure out the payment factor. Sometimes they give it to you. Sometimes they give you a chart that looks exactly like this. And you're like, whoa, what is that chart? We're going to make it easier now, right? Step one, just look for the 4.375. You guys see it? That's her interest rate. And 15 years. Well, there you go, 7.59. And we need that number to help us determine how much her principal and interest payment will be every month. All right, this means that the monthly principal and interest will be $7.59 for every 1,000 of loans she takes out. $7.59 for every 1,000. Okay, let's think about what that means. If it's $7.59 for every 1,000 of loan, why don't we figure out how many thousands are in the loan? If we do that, we could just multiply it by 759, right? All right, let's see how this works. So we're going to apply that factor to get the payment. Let's look. She's purchasing this home. We figured out the 759 per 1,000. So what do? It makes sense. Take the loan and divide it by 1,000. If you want to know how many of something is in there, divide by that thing. Again, remember when we did the acres? We want to know how many acres, so let's divide by acres. Well, we want to know how many thousands, so let's divide by thousands. All right, so here's her loan amount. Now it gives you loan amount here, sometime it doesn't. And then you know now how to figure out the loan amount, right? All right, so her loan amount, it's going to equal a number, and then we're going to just multiply that number by the payment factor. This is one that's very easy, so you want to remember how to do this one. So let's see. Her loan was $274,000 divided by 1,000, because let's find out how many thousands are in there. There's 274. There you go. Let's just multiply it by the factor they gave us. Her monthly payment is $2,079.66. Pretty easy. She's going to pay that every month for the life of the loan, because you remember this is a constant loan. Amortized, they use the term constant, flat. It's one flat payment throughout the loan life. All right, so that's the monthly principal and interest. Let's look at a variation of the same problem. She's purchasing her home for $350,000. Oh, here's one. We're going to have to figure out that loan amount first then, right? Because loan amount is pretty much the first step in many of these problems. So let's look at it. 350, 75% LTV. The payment factor is 7.26. Her interest rate is 4.5%. What is her monthly principal and interest? Okay. Well, let's get the loan amount first. Let's just start there, right? You guys know how to do that. 350 times 75%. Okay, her loan is 262. Now we're just going to follow the formula that we talked about. See, this is what happens with you guys. You start seeing other information and then it goes haywire, right? No, all we're going to do is follow the formula. So what was that formula? We're going to take the loan over 1,000 and we're going to multiply it by the factor, right? Same formula. Let's see. 262 over 1,000 gives us 262.5, and then we're going to multiply it by the factor, 7.26. And so monthly, she pays $1905.75. Now, I'm sure you're like, KJ, what about that 4.5% in there? That's the problem, right? They got students running all around looking for how to use that 4.5%. You don't need it in this problem. Ignore this information. It's there to throw you off. If you go back a couple of slides and you remember that payment factor, when we found it ourselves, when we found the 7.59 ourselves, it included the interest rate already. So we don't have to use that number again. It was already included when we got to the payment factor. So that's just there to throw you off. Be careful of those. Last way, though, that they will do this question is like this. Jane purchasing that same home with a $426,000 loan at 6% over 30 years. The payment factor is 5.90. How much interest did she pay over the life of the loan? How much interest? Well, let me see. We can still figure out the payment factor, right? So we have that formula. Now we're given the loan already. And so since we're given the loan already, we're just going to go with that. So does everybody agree? We need 426,000 is the loan over 1,000. So we get 426 times the 590. We're just sticking with what we have. So she is paying $2,513.40 per month. How many years? 30 years? Okay, well, let's figure out what the 30 years is. 30 years is 360 months. So 2,513 times 360 months will give us, she's paying $904,824 in what? Principal and interest over the life of the loan. Both principal and interest over the life of the loan. Okay, so let's take that amount and just subtract it from the amount she borrowed. How much did she borrow? She borrowed $426 principal. So if the principal and interest is $904,824 and the principal is $426, we know that, it says it right there in the problem, then we can subtract the two, and what that has to be is interest. Again, you're going to ignore that 6% there, right? Because when they did the $5.90, it already included the 6%. We do not need that for this formula at all. So anytime you see that payment factor formula, ignore it if they give you interest rate in the formula. All right? And so that's it for this one.
Jumpstart your real estate career with KJ Method. Pass the exam with flying colors, only with KJ Method.